Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Cory Lindholm with PPC Unfiltered, your best and brightest PPC podcast in the universe. I am joined by my co-host, awesome man, super smart gentleman, Michael Nadalin. Hello, Michael.
Hey mate, how you going?
Very well. Thank you for asking. We were just catching up because it's a new year, 2024. You might be watching this video in April and think this is really outdated, and you're probably right. But for us, it is fresh as new. We are on the third day of January 2024. I guess it would be one day in the future because Michael is always in the future. But yeah, man, we're excited. We have a really fun topic to share with everybody. We want to be talking about what got us into PPC to begin with. Call that Google Ads, call it pay per click, whatever. If you're old school, call it AdWords, whatever. What got us into it, and what do we still love about it? Michael, any initial thoughts when you hear those kind of things?
Mate, it's interesting because at the end of the day, a lot of we work in an extremely niche industry where the one of the most powerful companies in the world, Google, makes tens of billions of dollars, I think like $35 billion a quarter from their advertising. Yet it's a skill that isn't taught at universities, isn't really talked about in the mainstream. It's just kind of like this $100 billion industry that's like hidden in plain sight. So when you get into this industry, like you and I, we're managing that hundreds of billions, not all of it, but some of it, billions of it,
most of it,
most of it, and we get a good cut of it. Yeah, it's what's fascinating is when I speak to other people about it, I'm curious about how they got into it because I know some of your story. I'm going to really discover more of your story today, but it's not anything that's taught at uni, or it's not even alluded at university. It's not taught on courses on YouTube. Like all these kind of fads and even like online don't really talk about Google Ads. So it's a really fascinating story of how people got into it and especially why they stay in it as well, because it's not that sexy. Well, I think it is, but for my own reason,
we do.
It's very analytical and data driven where people can get, if they're not data driven, they will leave fast. They might get some skills, do it for a few months or do a little bit on the side, but doing it full time for like a decade or for over 5 years, that's a very different story. So
that's true.
So they're my initial thoughts, which are 2 minutes in.
That's true though. There's a lot of like people who kind of dip their feet into this industry. Like I get hit up, I'm sure you do too, on LinkedIn or whatever, and people are just like, hey, I'm looking at getting into this, like I studied marketing in college, or they just want to work from home and be remote and travel the world and, have their own business. And so like PPC, that's what I want to do. And hey, I'm all for lifestyle design and doing your thing. Just know that it's not going to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn. And I always remind people, like when people ask me what I do, that answer has been refined over several years, where I used to say, it's advertising on Google. It's like a digital, billboard that's more trackable and all this like crap. And eventually I'm just saying, honestly, I'm more of a glorified data analyst. That's really what I'm doing. Like in a good way, like that's really what I'm doing. Like I'm not a data scientist by any means. I'd love to maybe eventually get there. But a lot of what we do that actually makes a difference is like we talked about reporting, like communication with clients, getting clear on goals and objectives, creating strategies for that. That all sounds good and well, but at the end of the day, analyzing the data and then making really good decisions off of what we find is the core of like success. And I feel like that's what I end up telling people what I actually do. How do you explain what you do to people?
Yeah, over the years I run the Google ads and people are like, oh, are they those pop-ups? I'm like, no, but okay, I'll just go with that. And then I started saying that I did advertising, which made more sense and now I say I run an advertising company if people ask me but most of what I really do is I feel like I'm more of a business consultant. Like at the end of the day, like I spend more time talking to clients about their businesses than the advertising because I'm doing my part well, but everything else. So it's interesting that you said you're more of a data analyst because I feel like I'm on the other side where I'm more of a consultant because I've got to like guide people because even though they're running a business, they're still having a lot of troubles on the business side more than the
Of
advertising.
course.
Like the advertising's done, they're good with it. So I tell people I run an advertising company, I feel like I'm more of like a babysitter for businesses and guide. But it's just, you know, even though we're doing the same type of thing, we, you know, our journeys or how we define it to ourselves or how we even identify what we do is very different. Like
Very
I
true.
naturally do a lot of data analysis, but the crazy thing is I don't say that, not because we're any different, but it's like, I think that's always been part of me. So I don't feel like it's a job. I'm always analyzing stuff. Like we were talking about
Yeah,
before
yeah,
this call, like
yeah,
I'm always thinking about data and introspection. Like I feel like it's happening in the background, not the foreground. I feel like I've got to be doing more like hand holding rather than actually like
yeah.
data analysis now. So yeah, that's what
I almost want to speculate. Like I feel like I lean more introverted than you, more of an extrovert, and I think I enjoy the data analysis process more than the client communications process. Whereas if I had to take a guess, you probably enjoy both, but you really enjoy the client communication more than the. But you're a spreadsheet guy too, though.
yeah,
Like I
but
don't know,
that's
you're
the
a little
thing.
bit of both.
I don't know because this is the challenge I have with myself. I really think deep down I'm like introverted. But anyone around me, they see me as extrovert. I'm like, well, this identity crisis I have. And I don't know if it's just because I speak loud and fast and I'm expressive that it comes across like that. But most
Uh,
of the time, I just like to bunker down in my office, work by myself. Like, I don't really want to be working with hordes of people. When I've got a client call that day, I'm like, okay, cool. But I wish I could just like be focused just for the day and just like go deep in the data, do a lot of analysis. So I don't know, man. That's the thing. I'm broken. I'm really
Well,
broken.
well, you know what? This goes to the point of this video, I think, because I think in order to be really good at this and to love it over time, I think you need that weird mix of good extroversion, sales, communication skills, but also that introverted analytical mindset. And that's a weird mix. Like most people
Yeah.
are generally, and maybe just talking out of my ass here, but a lot of people are going to be really good at one, not so good at the other, like communication skills, the sales skills, not great, but they're fan. If you need an Excel formula created, those guys will bust it out no problem.
Yeah.
If you need programming done, they could do it for you. You could bust those lines of code out. And then there's vice versa. There's like the rest of it could only do one or the other. So
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting mix that comes up when I notice if someone's really guru-y, that's just like my own word to it. Like they're really just, they want to be an influencer, they want to be a content creator, but they don't know anything, much of anything to do with Excel or Google Sheets or scripts or anything. I'm pretty worried about their prospects of doing this long term because they're going to get a lot of clients, maybe if they're good at sales and content, but keeping those clients and growing those accounts probably going to be a challenge. And eventually word of mouth is going to happen and you're not going to probably grow that agency very far.
That's thank you for just sharing that. That's actually really insightful for me right now. It's yeah, like the idea of the extroverted, introverted, it is not a polar opposite. You can jump into different roles at different times. I will just say this. I don't think I'm good at selling. I have a business that makes good money, but I don't know why I'm not good at selling. I've worked for people who are extraordinary world class at selling. I've got friends who are like outstanding salespeople. I'm like, I don't know if it's just like paranoia or my father was a lawyer, so like I always learned like what you say is what's real, and that could be held against you. So do not say anything that you don't think you can achieve or do because people hold against you. So I've never oversold myself. I actually undersell myself or the business, so then I can over deliver, and it
Yeah.
makes me actually quite paranoid at times. So the extroversion I have is more from a passion to serve clients and really just
Yeah.
like help them rather than to get them because they're already
Yeah.
sold on me. It's just more about how do I use that extroversion to guide them towards their actual outcome. But I
Makes
feel
sense.
like we could keep going this circle right now,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
awesome because we're having a conversation. But coming back to the things which is what got us into it and what keeps us into it actually would be, I think if we start that conversation, would bridge back to this because it will show
True.
our inner motives. And maybe those inner motives can help educate other people to be like, oh, actually, I'm like that. Or actually, I'm not like that. Maybe I need to strengthen that part of myself because it's not like where we were born with these like innate skills
Yeah.
and then this is just like talent. It's like we learned these skills. Like when I was a
Yeah.
child, I could read, But I felt like every time I read a book, I never took any of it in. But like I've got a bookshelf over there with heaps of books that I've read from back to forth, highlighted. Like I'm an avid reader now, and I'm an avid learner. And you know, a lot of the things we'll share, people can learn. Like
Yeah.
we've learned it. Like I wasn't born coming out of the womb knowing how to do Excel formulas. I wish I did. I'd probably be way richer right now. But that's the thing. So yeah, let's start the conversation. Man, I laugh every time I chat to you. I always, after our calls, I always send an appreciation text, be like, "Dude, thank you so much," because like I laugh so much when I'm with you. I love this, man. I love you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna say that right now. But...
I love you too, man. New year, much love. So my journey started in a log cabin back in 1995, and I was.
Ding 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 ding
Yeah.
ding ding.
Cue the boring black and white pictures. No, I knew I wanted to be a PPC expert when I turned 6 years old. I went to the state fair, and that's all anybody wanted to talk about was this kid knew Excel formulas. No, I was working in a medical office. It was a physical medicine office in Denver. Downtown Denver, super busy. I'd probably say it was the most successful office in town. So I got very lucky. I actually originally applied just to get any job downtown in Denver because I had moved there on a whim. And I had been doing sales for a couple of years and just always crushing it. But I wanted something different. And I wanted to, like I said, work in a downtown, like high-rise skyscraper, just like a young gun. Just wanted that. And I applied for front desk. And the guy offered me a marketing position. He said he wanted someone to run the marketing division, and there was 2 other people at the time. So he offered me that instead, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like I'd much rather do marketing than just check people in for their appointments. You know what I mean? I've done those jobs too, guys. So I'm not hating on those jobs at all. It's all necessary, and some people like that. But I definitely wanted to do marketing. And then I was managing, and they really didn't have much of a digital presence. They kind of had something, a website, not a great one, didn't really have a full CRM integration that at least I felt was, good enough. We were rarely generating internet-based leads. So it was kind of like starting from scratch, design, like kind of not fully redesigned the website, but did some redesigns of the website. That's where I built up some of my landing page and conversion rate optimization experience. And I'm such like an avid, like when I learn something, I like obsessively learn. I like read all the books and I follow all the experts, and I like build these gigantic lists of like best practices. And oh my God, it's endless. And so I had that, and I did that for... I still do it. Even sometimes I have to stop myself, but yeah,
same as me.
It's part of the process. And I learned that. I did the CRM stuff. I did email marketing and building custom funnels. At the time, we had what was it? What's Infusionsoft? It was like, oh God, we got to build out this really complex thing. Did all that. I was doing in-person marketing, on the street, handing out flyers, teaching people how to do that. We were doing like corporate events. We were doing like these free massage events. I was doing everything, like just covering the full bracket of marketing. Just how do we get more patients through the door? And building that marketing, the digital part from scratch really, really attracted me to social advertising, actually Facebook ads. Because at that time, that was the rage of like becoming a freelancer and doing social advertising. And I knew I always wanted to work for myself, and I knew that I would do anything to get to that point where I could have my own company. So I'll cut this down a little bit shorter. I did the social advertising thing. I took a couple of courses. I think it was like Billy Jean is marketing or whatever. And he kind of taught me like how to do the agency stuff. And I, after a couple of years of working there, I mean, we were crushing it internet wise. We had, bringing in a ton of leads from that, more than we had before. And the in-person was doing way better than before. I felt it was time to start on my own and do freelancing. Failed miserably, as all first businesses probably should, to temper the ego. I turned my old boss into one of my first clients, which always felt like a good success story, but that went away pretty quickly because I didn't do a good job. I'll admit that right now. And then I realized I needed to get a lot more volume, just more accounts, more experience, more testing, whatever. So I joined an agency that they just threw accounts at you. It was like, I think I started with like 10 to 20 Google Ads accounts, and I barely knew how to do Google Ads at that point. And, as many Facebook advertising accounts and Snapchat and everything that was possible with social advertising. And I quickly found that the guys that were doing Google Ads were a lot more like me in that they were really analytical, and Google Ads, especially at that time, had more data, and it was more reliable data to do things. And there was more they could do, whereas Facebook ads felt like, at that time at least, get the imagery right, get the imagery or the videos right, if you can get that from the client, because you know how that goes, getting assets for things, and then rotating them out and trying to keep it consolidated. You don't want to like over segment, and you don't want to go too crazy with it. And it felt like it's a lot of kind of set it and forget it until you're going to refresh the imagery in the videos and build these funnels and stuff. And then the Cambridge Analytica thing happened, and Facebook targeting kind of went down the shitter. And I just eventually found that Google Ads, the way you think about it, the way you approach optimization, the amount of data that you have, and seeing the true power of it happened after that agency. I joined a startup, and I was, again, their social ad guy. And I saw their Google Ads dude who was he just lived in Thailand. This was his only thing.
Yeah.
And he was like 85% of our Q4 business. And our Q4 business was like 80% of our annual revenue. He just killed it. And I was like, I think I want to do Google Ads. Like, just seeing the power of Google Ads by itself. Obviously, it doesn't work by itself. There's an omni-channel thing. But I think that just was like eye-opening. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And that's what I eventually did after that, and never looked back.
Nice. And beautiful, man. So that's what you got into it. What keeps you into it?
Yeah. Well, oh gosh.
There we go.
I think it's the data. I think it's like those moments where my heart starts racing, because I think I found like an anomaly that we can take advantage of. Like, that is one of the biggest things where I'm like, I've been working on it like a data project for 14 hours or something. I've cleaned the data. I've re-cleaned the data. I've organized it into cohorts that make sense, whatever it is. And then I eventually find this thing that I didn't expect to see. And I'm like, what's going on with this? And then I dig a little bit deeper and like, wait. And then I start going like, well, I could probably build a campaign. I could use this match type. I could use this new setting that Google just tried to experiment. And then my heart starts going, and that adrenaline rush kicks in. I'm like, okay, now I'm excited for like this new experiment to happen. I think that's one of the biggest ones. And then obviously, being able to live wherever I want. Like, I'm in Colombia right now, and not have to have any employees, not have to, work with people I don't want to work with. Like, that's a fantastic luxury of this job too. So I think that's also a big part of it for me personally. How about you, man? Where did you get started? I'm really curious. I don't know your origin stories of PPC.
I ask a lot of questions. So my PPC origin stories started when did it start? Look, I went to uni in Melbourne and did a degree in business information systems. So it was a blend of business subjects and IT subjects. By the way, did you go to college or uni?
I did. University of Arizona. Yep. Psychology and business. Nice. And healthcare. Yeah.
Interesting. And I did that for a few years. And as I was doing that through that time, I was going through a lot of internet marketing courses on like how to start your own businesses and all those types of things. Started just a couple of random businesses, probably only made $2,000 in total from it. But I was really had the idea of, at that time being young, I was like, oh, if I have an online business, then I can travel, then all this stuff. But I was still at uni at the time. And then this is the advice I'd give other people. But at that time, I had to kind of follow my own advice, because other people would just like start a business and just grind it out. Versus when I finished my uni degree, I was like, I'm just going to get a job in marketing. And I think everyone should get a job in the industry that they want to get good at, mainly because, one, you get paid money, which is important because you'll make more money in a month rather than you're probably making 4 months from running your own business. Two, you're around people who are actually teaching you practical skills. You're not having to learn it on your own and filter through it. And then three is you're getting experience. Like, you're just doing the work. So I got a job in a marketing company. It's really strange because I was getting hired to do a grad role, and they were going to put me in like the content or copywriting team. Now, if you know me, mate, I cannot string a sentence together typing. It's really hard for me. I love chatting. I love data, but like just writing long sentences, it just isn't my thing. And like imagining me going down a path of like copywriting is just wild. So then
ChatGPT.
one of my best friends now, like we've been best friends for nearly 10 years, he was actually working at that company, but he went on a trip to Turkey. So they needed someone in the Google Ads team of the company. And it's
Ah,
just serendipity. Like the day I started was the day was his first day of leave. So I never met him. So I was in the Google Ads team. So it's pure coincidence that I got into it. It wasn't a choice. I kind of knew about paid ads, but I just knew I just wanted to be in like the whole marketing space because I'd been watching a lot of training videos and online business stuff about it. And then I did Google Ads there for 2 years. And then I went to another bigger agency that people may know. And I was there for 2 years doing Google Ads. I was a senior Google Ads specialist and analytics specialist. Then I went to a third agency where I was a campaign manager. So Google Ads, Facebook ads, landing pages, consulting, data analysis, like everything that I'm proud to be a skill now, I really learned there. So I spent, like 7 years at agency just doing Google Ads. Like it was just serendipity.
oh,
It wasn't I watched a video on how good it is. And then, my journey just continued because when I was at my last job, I just kind of kept getting clients on the side just from referrals because I'd met so many people over those last two jobs that, I'd been working hard. I was focused. I was passionate about it that they were like, oh, I know someone, my cousin or this. And then, that's how my business grew. And that's why I'm still in it today. So the path almost was set there for me. And I've stuck to it. I didn't get derailed by going, I'm going to do all these other skills, all this. I'm like, I just knew Google Ads worked because I'm more of a common sense guy. I like practicality. So that's why
yeah.
it stuck with me because it seemed common sense because behaviorally people used it. People didn't seem like they were not going to use it. There's people spend a lot of money on ads. It's not something that's taught at uni where there's going to be competition, like grads coming out every year. Like it's the rich get richer. The more rich you are in experience, the more rich you'll get in clients and money from it because people want to trust like they're investing. And it also just taught me how to be extremely analytical. Like there was no creativity in it, especially when I was doing it. Like, yeah, there was some remarketing banners like 7 years ago and you did that stuff. But even when that was around, I didn't care. I was just more like looking at the data, looking at the keywords, looking at the search term conversion rate, and knowing that by having this data, I have full control to an extent. Like I can actually control it. It's not like I'm relying on algorithms. It's like if I put more money into this area based on past data, we should expect this many results. And having that confidence in the data gave me confidence to communicate to clients, account managers, to the team. And when you have that confidence, plus you deliver results, people love you. Like
Yeah.
clients and people in your team, because most times people are not confident in their recommendations or they do not deliver results, which lacks the confidence in everyone. So yeah, what keeps me in it, man, is just like, I know I can make a positive impact. Like I can run ads and I can make businesses millions of dollars, which change their lives, especially if they're struggling. I get to live wherever I want now. I get to live by the beach. I get to work for myself with people I love, with clients I love. And, I fucking love it. Like, I don't know what else could keep me in the game except for I love the work. I like the income it makes me. I love how I can live my life and choose to live my life. I love that I get to choose who I get to work with and the people I
Yeah.
get to surround myself with. And the ultimate benefit of all of that was as you start to grow in these areas and you have success, other successful people who you never really had access to want to become your friends, not to take, just because they want to be in that energy. And then I
Yeah.
make new friends. So like it fulfills a lot of needs in me
Yeah.
with just one, skill, which is advertising or paid ads or
Yeah.
Google ads actually. But, as that bleeds out into other areas now of like social or Facebook ads and landing pages and some other things, it even solidifies further up into adding more value to the world. So yeah, that's what's kept me in it.
And you seem like we're like in this where you're like a perpetual learner. Like you're just mentioning about the books. Like for me, that also keeps me in Google Ads is always learning a new business, like a new service offering, a new offer and way we can twist
Yeah.
that, shape it into a strategy. And every new business that you onboard, or that's also why I really like consulting, is because I might not have to work on it for years. Sometimes they just never want to leave, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like learning a new industry, a new product, that's really exciting to have a client, right? A couple clients right now that we have a lot of new products being released, and I'm super excited about that because I'm like, it's a nice refresh on working with the account. Like we get to try some new stuff. It's a new demographic that'll potentially like these new search terms to sculpt and optimize around. So I think that also keeps me going as the perpetual learning, you know?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all. Yeah, the ongoing learning is. This is what's strange to me. I had a mate over the other night who's been very successful, sold his company, made a lot of money. And I was just saying, I'm like, I don't know what my life would be like. He was talking about one of his mates who has his own farm. He's a personal trainer, but does a lot of like energy and esoteric works. And I'm like, sick. I'm super into that as well. But he's like, he doesn't read books. And I'm like, I don't even
Wow.
know what my life would be if I wasn't reading personal development or business development books or like books on like awareness, consciousness, spirituality. I'm like, what is that life? Because it's so ingrained with me of learning and expanding and then learning practical things and then sharing it with or practicing it with clients or family and friends to make the journey bigger, like make everything better.
Right.
And it seems just crazy to me. Like you say, like we've both got a passion for learning, but I'm like, how can I not? Like, what
Right.
else is there?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
what
What
else
else?
is there? What else are you
100%.
supposed to do with like your free time? Like, what do people do who do not listen to audiobooks or read books? Like, I
Watch
get they listen to
TV.
podcasts or like listen to music. But I'm like, don't you just get bored of like this trash going in your brain? Like, you can profoundly shift life by just like absorbing beautiful
By
information.
listening to PPC Unfiltered. That's all
Yeah,
you
but
need.
that's
That's
it.
the only podcast you need.
And so I'll ask you, this is a more of on the learning questions because we're talking about our journey and what keeps you into it. But between what got you into it and what keeps you going, there were
Mhm.
probably people or resources along the journey that when you read that book or you did that course, something really shifted. Now, I know we've probably been through hundreds of books and heaps of courses. Is there anything that stands out that you're like, when I read this book, it gave me a new, fresh approach that kept me even invigorated? Because like, for example, if I was reading a book on business consulting, I could go from I'm just doing Google to I can actually see how Google really impacts the full business and how I can consult on different levels to them. Were there any moments
Yeah.
or books or courses that actually really drove that for you?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna forget a bunch.
Would you
I
like me to go first
actually
and you can process?
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
So early on, I realized that Google Ads is an advertising channel, but then the data behind it was super important. So I spent a lot of time like really understanding Google Analytics. For back in the day, it was
Hmm.
fucking gold. So the two main courses I went through, there was a guy called Jeffalytics,
Oh
and
yeah, he's still around.
yeah, and I did. I remember because when I was at this agency called King Kong, I was doing heaps of training on analytics just because I was so passionate about it, and I could see how it applied to like SEO and website data and convert. Like you could see the full image, and for Facebook data as well. And so many people were just so focused on their channel that it's like we've got this rich data here, teaching it to account managers or like client service people. And that really helped me really go to the next level because I'm like, there's Google Ads, but then there's like Google Analytics. And then I was really understanding, like, it's so, when I think back of these notes I was taking, I was like avidly learning about data analytics, but the theory of data analytics, like, you know, actionable insights and then like taking action and like the different stages, like historical data versus predictive data and like the terms like that. Because when I learned the terms, I'm like, oh, yeah, you can look at past data but then you can use that to predict the future.
Yeah.
So there was Jeffalytics, learning about data analysis, just like the theory of data analysis in general in business, which I could apply back in. And then actually a beautiful blend of those two things, all of that was actually, there was a course by Ed Leak called uh, Google Analytics Secrets to Get All Sales in Google Ads or something like that. And it was a course about how to use Google Analytics to improve your Google Ads account. And I felt that was just a perfect blend because when I was watching a lot of Google Ads tutorials, it was the same stuff you could watch on YouTube, but this was someone who was going, there's this complementary platform that plugs in that has so much data that you can use to make decision making for this. So, yeah, Jeff Sawyer or Jeffalytics, Ed Leak's old analytics secrets, and then just studying data analytics in general. What about
Yeah,
you, mate?
I love that. There's a blanking on his name, but Web Analytics 2.0 is his book. Gosh, I can't remember his name. He was part of the team that eventually became the company is Simply Learn, which is a huge learning platform
Oh,
now.
Avinash
Yes,
Kaushik. Yeah, I remember
Avinash.
this book. I remember
Yes.
I downloaded this PDF like for free, Titan, and I was like, "This is so good." But dude, the book is huge. I'm like,
Yeah.
firstly,
Yeah.
not even how could anyone read that? How could anyone even write that? It's one thing
How
to
can I
read it.
write that? Yeah.
So,
He's a
so go on.
genius.
I'd love to know your insight because I remember this
Yeah.
book, man.
Yeah, he was able to simplify those complex topics in a way that I could understand, which was really helpful and made it interesting. And I think he was really good at showing the value of learning it and not like how you could actually use it, not just like here's how to find something in Google Analytics, but like here's why you find it and here's the questions
Yeah.
you're trying to answer with this stuff and here's an example of how you could use it. I really love that. It's probably not as it's probably dated at this point. There was also I can't remember the company name before they became Simply Learn, but Brad Geddes had of Adanalysis. He had a course. It was like an ultimate sort of Google Ads course, and I think his way of approaching Google Ads really aligned with how my brain worked in a weird way, and I think he was able to he didn't speak like a guru. He spoke like a data analyst, and it really
Yeah.
kind of was like, I feel like I'm getting this now. It was a really broad one. That was a good one. A couple ones that really, and obviously I took Isaac's course on Udemy. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's still is relevant today. Probably. Frederick Vallet's Unlevel the Playing Field, any of his books that he's written, there's always been moments where I'm like, oh God, I didn't think about using the API that way, or
Yeah.
whatever. His books are always fantastic. The guy who runs TrueClicks, he's a buddy of mine. And I'm always forgetting his last name because it's like European, and like my last name is European too. But anyway, he wrote a blog series on Adanalysis.com, and it was on just manual bid management. And I had never seen something so complex. And it just kind of like really like awoke it awakened, I should say, this like there's a way deeper level of this that I have no idea about, like ways to visualize the data and ways to analyze the data by visualizing it this way, and ways to like put your search terms and your keywords into different buckets by performance, and how you want to use that for bidding differently, and how you want to be cautious and using minimum sample size. And then that got me into like CXL type of training to see the CXL site, and it got me deeper and deeper into like really understanding like the statistical part of what I'm actually looking at, not just like click-through rates up. What does that mean? How are my quality scores doing? But like, how do I use that information to actually get the results the client wants?
Yeah.
Without knowing that stuff, I would have just been pushing buttons and guessing, which is why I think a lot of people are really bad at this, is because they don't learn those statistical principles. They don't know how to actually analyze data or how to visualize data in an effective way. And then they just run in circles. Then they get lucky and they're like, yeah, I guess Pmax is great. And they're like, don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a big part of it for me. Those are a couple of the big ones for me, for sure.
Nice, mate. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
interesting. Even understanding and going deep down this rabbit hole. And actually, this is a false belief. But sometimes you look at other agencies whose skills are very significantly less than ours. You're like, how are they getting good results? And sometimes it's not relying. And then it's like, am I overlearning? But it's like, no, you can never overlearn, because the moment where you need that knowledge is when you need it. And you don't want to be like underskilled in that moment. It's better to be
Yeah.
overskilled. And then when that moment comes, you've got the skills, rather than being like, why am I spending so much time doing data analysis when I don't really need to? And it's like, that's fine.
Sure.
But like, if you don't do it now when you can build up the skill when things are good, it's going to be really hard when you actually need that skill when things aren't going as well.
Yeah. If the client asks, like, why did this work? You have to have a good answer for that, unless you're just a masterful bullshitter. Like, if you say, I don't know, there's no reason for them to keep paying you, in my opinion, because, like, if that keeps happening month over month, then they could probably just do the same thing. And then it is what it is.
The risk that really does happen is things are good for just no reason. And
yeah, the market's good for the product or whatever. Yeah, there's no competition.
You need to have a reason as well. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, mate. But look, we've had this conversation for nearly 35 minutes. Shall we wrap it up?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
so guys,
you wrap
go
up.
ahead. Go ahead. I was going to say, you can find me on LinkedIn and YouTube, PPC Unfiltered, as well as Cory Lindholm for LinkedIn and YouTube.
Yep, you can find me on LinkedIn. Oh, am I speaking now?
And your turn.
I'm on LinkedIn, marketlead.com.au, and MarketLead on YouTube, and the PPC Unfiltered podcast on YouTube and Spotify.
Awesome chat, brother.
Okay. See you soon, mate.
All right. Talk soon.
Bye.